we start? It is time. If other people come. Good evening. Welcome everybody. And don't we all wish we could still have these on Zoom on a night like this? Public question time. We have the space for the public to speak and then shut up. It makes more sense for you to speak when we get to your thing on the agenda, doesn't it?
Not a problem at all.
And there aren't any other members of the public here, so we'll move on. Does anybody, now that we are obliged to offer this, wish to record this over and above the recording we'll be taking for YouTube? No? Okay. We've got two dispensations for absence for Councillor Bustard and Councillor Paul Davis, Dixon. And and we have apologies from Councillor Greaves, who will be here but he'll be late. Are there any other apologies?
No, that's it.
Do we have members and officers' personal and disclosable pecuniary interests? Anybody have any personal and disposable pecuniary? We need to specifically ask about this because I think we've been a bit lax recently in some committees and people have kind of forgotten that they knew somebody who's involved in something or other and everything. Don't forget to sign in, Sean. Are there any written requests for new DPI? No. Is there anything on this agenda that should be discussed in private session? No. Right, we won't do the minutes, we'll go on to the one grant application, which is the TEC, which is 104. We've received your written application. Would you like to address us?
Yes. Do I stand or?
You can sit. You can sit.
Thank you. I don't come to many things like this. I spoke to somebody last time regarding the TEC and answered questions regarding this. Just to give you an update of where we are, we've had some very generous people who've donated nearly £6,500, which would see us run out of money at the end of March entirely, apart from restricted funds, which were given by the Green Trust for some lighting, which has been done, and further donation was given by council to repair the kitchen if it's into working order. The £5,000 that we're requesting is more or less a bridge to build together a couple of extra months before we get into warmer weather when we won't have the huge amount of gas and electric. We don't charge a lot for the people who come and use the TEC because we are a community-based common interest trust. So we can charge a little bit for room use, etc. At the minute, the room use isn't really covering the bills that are going out. So all we're asking for is £5,000. I feel like I'm trying to say here, to be able to help us for a few months to get us to the warmer weather, and then we can start moving a war chest again with the amounts that we're receiving from people using the TEC. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions if I'm able.
Okay, do any councillors have any questions? Councillor Hobley.
Can I just ask a question about the sort of ongoing, I guess, rental of space within the TEC? So obviously you refer to the fact that and I completely get that you support sort of vulnerable groups and you can't charge too much, but what's your kind of long-term business plan to balance that? Because it's likely that energy bills will continue to be high for some time. Clearly, seasonally, they'll dip through the summer, but how do you anticipate not having this problem in the next winter?
When the TEC was purchased by Home Birth Tech Limited, Home Birth Tech Trust, I can't remember the correct name for it, there were a lot of issues with the building, the boiler, the windows, and things that we needed to do to bring it up to a standard where we would be able to run it. If we are able to keep going to the warmer weather, we can put some of those things into place. We've had a full energy audit done on behalf of the Green Trust, so we have some really good ideas that we can put into place with funding that we can get from specific parts of the government, specific parts of charities that would actually support us to keep the building up to a standard. are a few very, very unsensible people like myself who volunteer quite a bit of the time to do some of this for free. So we do have things in place, and I'm using some of my contacts I'm a building compliance manager, so I'm using my contacts to be able to get the best deals that we can and use grants that are available. We foresee that if we can get to, we say the warmer weather, it's less gas and electric use. If there hadn't have been the increase in gas and electric, we had more than enough to run for 12 months, which gave us a chance to be able to then look at bringing extra capital in. So it really, genuinely, we just need a few months' grace to be able to get to that point where we can start building capital. But again, we don't want to have £500,000 and charge people £100 to use the building. We're never going to keep a lot of money. We're always going to keep it that we have enough to run to keep it as a community organisation. I don't know if that was a good answer, but I tried.
Councillor Barker?
In the statement here where you're describing the project, it says you've applied for grants elsewhere but so far been unsuccessful.
Yes.
And also grants to make the building more efficient. Has there been any progress on those?
We were unsuccessful in a couple of the grants because we needed £850,000 for the windows. We're at a point now, we've actually been recommended for registration with English Heritage, which is restrictive in some of the grants that we've applied for, but actually would move us higher into the category for getting funding in other areas because, you know, English Heritage do exactly what they say on the tin, they want to protect buildings of significant interest. So we're actually waiting for the final say so whether we're going to become a listed building. If we do become a listed building, it opens up avenues for support from English Heritage, from surveyors, from people who will actually support us and tell us what we can apply for. But until we get to that point, we're struggling a little. The Green Energy Trust gave us funding to put in LED lighting, so we replaced a lot of the older lighting with LED. We're just waiting for the final sign-off to be able to put in the PIR sensors for the room use, which in my experience knocks about 40% off your bills, which is pretty good. We looked into applying for solar panels, which identified that our roof is very, very old and very expensive to mount onto. But again, that's the little part where we get to where we're not quite listed, but we're waiting to find out what happens. But a lot of the things that are done at the tech are done by myself and Roger, who's on the board as well, who helps out, and we do 90% probably the things in the building to try and keep costs down if we can.
Thank you.
Councillor Curry, did you have a couple?
Yeah, I didn't declare an interest in this, but as you're probably aware, I'm working with some of the organisations that use it, and it's probably worth noting that I think your communications are a lot better at the moment. If you look at what's been pushed out, and the stuff I've seen particularly on Facebook, about offering the spaces that you're renting out, the car park spaces, there's quite a lot of activity happening in the tech that's really, really valuable, and there's a lot of interest at the moment, and tonight's a good example of this, of opening up buildings and spaces where people can go and get warm. And I suppose more importantly, it's actually about where people can connect with other people. So the work that's happening at the Nest upstairs, who are one of your anchor tenants, and the work that Gary and others are doing with the Arts for Health project, because they're opening up on Tuesday and Thursday now. So what I'm actually seeing is an increase in activity, which is really, really important, but obviously a lot of those people don't pay a huge amount of rent. I have sent them some money because there's lots of little pots of money around here, like 500 quid here and there, that they could claim extra money if there was if you were as a contribution towards the heating costs if it's not covered by the rent. But I still don't think that's going to. I can still see there's a need for this. I think where I got very confused and a bit frustrated was the initial campaign said you were 40,000 adrift, and that was conflating two things, both the heating issue and the capital works, wasn't it? So if this is, I'm assuming I know the answer to the question. This will be a grant that will go purely on utility bills.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you were here last time I mentioned this. When we asked for that amount of money, we knew we needed a new boiler and we needed a new flue, etc. There are some very generous people in the Home Valley that have said that they'll pay for it.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't know enough about Just Giving pages, but all I've been told is it's not really a good idea to go in and change targets and things on them once they've been set up, or to cancel it and then open another one, because it kind of looks like you're going, I need this much money, oh it's not working, I need this much money, it's not working. That amount of money, we potentially won't ever hit 45,000 before it closes in March, you know, unless Alan Sugar drives through in his nice car and gives us some. But that would have been kind of, in an ideal world, 45,000 would have been fantastic. It would have paid utility bills up until the end of April, May. It would have paid for our boiler, it would have paid for the flue, and it would have given us a chance to do the other things that would reduce costs in the centre. However, possibly some of our board are a little bit more overzealous than others in in the way that they put things across. But hopefully it's not going to sour the waters that we asked for that amount of money. It would have been nice if we hadn't got it, but we're where we are at the moment.
And the other question is a question I suppose more for us that, and maybe for Rich. If normally we've got a cap of £1,000 on grants, haven't we? Unless it's a capital improvement. So under what powers or under what system or process could we give more than 1,000?
Well, we can have that discussion after,
Yeah.
when we talk about the detail after
Yeah.
we've gone.
I'd have to have a look at the financial regs. Are you aware that it's got to be capital for 5,000, or is it just to do with assets? I think it's just to do.
It has to be.
It's just to do with assets. So I'm not. I think it still applies because it's helping an asset.
If we consider it an asset,
Okay.
Whether it's appealing or not, you know, because it's no different, because obviously under the community assets budget we bought uniform, we bought tables, we bought all sorts of stuff. They're not capital in a kind of building sense, so I think it's much more fluid than you think.
Alright, thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.
okay, you're very welcome to stay if you like, but we will let you know very soon and we'll bring you
Well,
soon.
we should really do it.
We'll do it now.
We should really do it now. That's what we normally do.
I have to say, I'm not completely convinced that you're not going to be back in November for another. I don't see firm signs of making money. Relying on not using the gas and electric for the summer isn't enough to build up in. Gas prices are not going to go down for the next 2-3 years, if ever. I don't know what other councillors think.
In answer to that, just to alleviate a little bit, we have 3 quotes in now for the boiler replacement. The boiler we have in is very old and very inefficient. The boiler that we're having fitted is a lot newer, and as you're aware, boiler technology is improving massively.
Yeah, it's much better.
Again, the manufacturer says that it will save 50% of the gas usage. I'm a realist and I live in Home Firth and it's cold. So if it's a 30%, that is a massive amount of budget to save, even for hot water heating and hot water for hand washing. So if we could save 30% of the yearly amount of gas and electric, then it put us in a lot better state than we have.
It seems to me you might have to consider, or you perhaps should be considering, charging a bit more rent. I'm not saying driving your tenants out because you're so expensive. But
some tenants we charge a small amount. Some tenants we don't charge anything for because it's to do with other groups and we get funding from other areas. I'd hate to think that people stopped using something in Home Firth because we were overcharging. People live nearby and it's a nice place to get to. It's not the nicest of buildings, I've been to Buckingham Palace, but it's a nice building for people to come to, and people people have done very well from it. We've had people who started coming to tech who were really struggling, either financially or they were struggling with mental health conditions. And those people have gone on to do great things. Obviously, confidentiality, I can't mention anything specifically. But there are people now that are going off to universities and doing courses at one point where they didn't really want to leave the house. So I am quite passionate about it, and I really, really do hope that we can we can try.
Okay.
I was going to propose that we award the £5,000, and it's a relatively small amount, and I do know, and I know something about the work that happens on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it does actually attract people who don't go anywhere else, and it's playing a unique role. And for the want of a relatively small amount of money, and it'd be a great shame if there was any question of the tech running out of cash. So.
Is there a seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Hodgkin? All those
Yeah,
in-
I think, sorry, can I
Yeah.
just start? I think it's sort of, I do feel it's a bit of kind of very much a one-off situation caused by the, obviously big spike in energy prices. I'm conscious that in theory there could be lots of other community assets that come to us asking for that money, but I do see that the tech does play a fairly unique role in terms of the breadth of activities that it's able to house within it. And it does feel as if actually for this sort of exceptional reason, to some extent, if you'd come to us asking for money towards the boiler, then we would have, I personally would have found it easier to sort of say, well yes, there's a good idea.
it would have been much
You've
easier.
been lucky enough to have benefactors who's come and done that, and it feels as if that the gap, and as Councillor Blacker says, it's a significant amount of money for individuals, but actually for the parish council, given we have that funding available within our our monies this year, I think as a sort of one-off, I think it's the right thing to do. But I wouldn't want to see them coming back again next year.
I really don't want to have to come back.
Councillor Carr?
Yeah, I'm going to support it as well, but I mean, similar reasons. I was quite concerned really about setting a precedent because I work with a lot of the community groups around the area, and I know a lot of them are in a very similar position, but very few of them are actually saying they're in such a dire position asking for money. And we have actually got a small grant scheme that's still open for applications for up to £1,000, but it looks like there's very little demand for that. And in my day job, I'm trying to give other money away we've got from Locality to open up one spaces, and a lot of people are saying they don't need it, or somebody else has funded it, or one community's funded it. So in some ways I'm less worried about the precedent, but equally, I don't think we can get into the business of the parish of funding people's utility bills because it's just not viable. But I do think it's an exceptional circumstance, so I'd support it on that.
Okay, so shall we take you as you're having seconded
Yes.
the proposal? All those in favour? That's clearly carried.
Very much. Thanks. Thank you.
Right. You're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish, but I don't think you should feel obliged to do so.
I would love to work with the parish council going forward, and, but I think it's
But
probably,
not to sit through the rest of this meeting.
I always find it's easier if you don't have a member of the public sat watching over your shoulder while you're doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, bye.
Thanks.
Please use the lift, not the stairs.
Yes, I got rather lost on the way up. I apologise. Thank you. See you later. Bye.
Chair, I just had a quick look at the financial regulations, and I couldn't see anything that stipulates.
No, I
we
don't think
couldn't
there is.
spend it on.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we can. I think it's, as Doug said, it's the concern about precedent. I mean, there's been loads of very worthy things in the valley that may go under because of fuel bills,
But we still do have a fair amount of money.
Yes, we do.
I think
For this
even
winter,
even
yeah.
that- Probably can't read it on my.
No, and I think they do a great job for the community. I mean, I'm a big fan of the tech and what it does. I'm just concerned that they're not robust enough to be able to cope next winter, but we'll see.
It sounds like they're doing something about it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that takes us back to the minutes of the previous meeting, which you've had a chance to do. You've had for a week. Are you okay with those? Can I take them as passed?
Yeah.
Yes. Right, so accounts for payment. Now, on 223105, and the first three of 105 are to note. They're to note the expenditures from the chairman's expenses budget, the schedules of payments. Are they noted?
Yeah.
Noted. And to consider approving the pending month-to-date transactions of the schedule of payment for 23. Do we wish to approve that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Everybody?
Sorry, could I just ask a
Yes.
question about the F? You want that?
Well, that's what I was going to ask, which, can you tell us which
Can you tell us what letters they're on?
Well, the first three, there's 1, 2 and 3 are just noting schedules of
Yeah.
payment, and then 4 is considering the month-to-date transactions.
Is that A, list of payments?
We're on 223 105,
It's fine,
accounts for payment,
Paper G, isn't it?
number 1V.
Yeah. So I was,
G.
yeah, so I'm on item 105 as well, but I just wanted to ask a question as a deputy clerk, just because I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
It
one?
was just about the JCB hire that's in F for January payments. I was
Oh, right,
intrigued
Oh,
what
yes,
that's
that
for.
one.
It was for one of the gravestones toppled over in the New Mill churchyard, and we had to.
Oh, it's
I
one
think
of the
we
few
have to- I think we have
churches
to-
we actually are responsible for,
I
isn't
think we had
it?
to basically flatten, so it's lying flat now. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask John, but that's what it is.
I know he has to do a topple test to make sure they don't.
Yeah. Well, this one actually, in fact, this one was actually dangerous. So
And I think what people do nowadays is lie them down rather than try to re-erect them.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
yeah.
Any other queries on that particular section?
Good spot now. I should perhaps have been a bit more clear about what that was for.
So moving on, if we do we approve the pending transactions schedule? Yes.
Yes.
And then 106 to note November and December, just numbers 1 and 2, just to note all those reconciliations in fact. Yeah, fine on that. Number 3, to review the most, to consider whether any action is needed to manage specific budget lines, cost centres, or the overall budget. Rich, do you want to talk us through this section? Is there some-
Well, I don't think there was anything particularly in the list that needed a great deal doing to it. As you can see, I've moved around various of those violence. You know, we were wiring stuff to various pots and moving things around. So I've done that, so they should look more like, you know, the situation should be more like what the recommendations went through at the last council meeting. So I don't think there's an awful lot to do really, other than keep monitoring stuff. I don't think the toilets budget, which I thought was going to be way over, I don't think it's going to be as bad as it looked
Right.
some months ago.
Is that because of it's not been as expensive as you thought, or there's been less maintenance than we expected, or that we're getting?
We're not weeing as much as we used to.
I wonder if we're getting any more in from cash donations.
I'd have to look, and no, it's not that. It's because that's not factored into it. The income and the expenditure are two separate pots. I'd have to look, to be honest, but it's certainly not going in. I think in the summer months the water bill goes up incredibly in the summer. Like so it's like 1,500 quid for a quarter, whereas now I think it's like 200 quid for a quarter. So I think I was probably projecting it to be similar.
On the summer,
but I don't think it is similar. So it's still going to be over, but not as bad as it was, I suspect.
Good. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, sorry.
No, I don't think there was an awful lot else to say.
Sorry, can I just ask? Sorry, you go first.
I was just going to compliment Rich on the clarity with which we
Yes.
set out. I
Yeah.
just think it's excellent.
That was great.
Yeah, can I just ask a question? Sorry, I'm not going to.
As a slight digression, but since we have service provision here, what's happening on the Great Homley dog poo bag scandal?
Well, I think we're going to talk about that in the next service
I
provision.
don't think they've ever had
Yeah,
any
haven't
issues
had
since then. So,
Okay.
But can I just ask for the Gartside's building?
yeah.
Presumably and I have a feeling this is later in the agenda, but I can't remember. The electricity is still being divided the way that it was.
Yeah, I'm not-
with the
I'm not-
previous tenant.
I haven't given them their first bill yet, so that will be, so this will be, we're coming to the end of their first 3 months, so at the end of this month I'll be asking for a meter reading and then sending them a bill, yeah.
But they're paying, at the moment they're paying their,
Yeah, I think they pay by standing order, so it's
Oh,
just
brilliant.
push, bash, bosh, it's.
In advance.
good
yeah,
result, really.
in advance, yeah.
Okay, on to earmarked reserves. Is there anything we need particularly to consider on this?
I don't think so. Again,
Yeah.
I was moving things around, moving things from earmark reserve to earmark reserve, as per agreements, like with the topograph and something else. The COVID memorial. But I don't think there's anything extra to do particularly. It's just about
Okay.
keeping an eye on stuff.
Was there something about children's playgrounds, Rachel, that you?
Yeah, 50 grand's still there. It's there.
Yeah, well, there's nothing happened with it yet. They contacted Councillor Hogley again, didn't they?
Yeah,
Um,
I haven't chased it in the new.
No, but I think there's still room to do something with them if we go down that route. I think, isn't there? They're still interested. I think from our point of view, I think because we don't quite know what's going to happen next year, I think we probably need to consider the 50,000 as something that might need to be moved around, just to make sure that we're solvent at some point. It's hard to tell, to be honest. But there might be capacity, as we discussed, to use it for playgrounds or to
Or some of the youth,
repurpose it.
young people's activity.
Are you, Rich, able to, because you also got emails back, didn't you?
Yeah.
Are you able to nudge
Yeah, I can.
the officer just
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say, you know, where have you got to in terms of when the next stage of plan, because I think it was Victoria Park and Sands were the two parks that were
Yeah.
particularly highlighted, because it would be good to find out whether they're saying, well, actually we're not going to do anything, or what, because I think they were preparing outline.
No, I thought it was on the verge of happening, yeah. Councillor Carr?
Two quick ones. One, the new Mill Scouter, is that an old historic one? And do you know the status of it really? Because with all capital projects, and particularly with struggling to get builders of cost of things, are they still planning to build it, drawing down?
Well,
Do you know where it's at?
Well, I mean, so this was an award we made last year. Well, no, it was the end. Was it the end of the previous year? It might have been the end of the previous year. The end of the previous year. And I think we asked them to come back, didn't they? Because they asked for 5, and we asked them to come back, but they didn't. But I contacted him a few months ago, and he said they're no further on.
Right.
But I mean, if it's in our earmark reserve, it can just sit there. It doesn't cost us. It doesn't really cost us anything. We've said I basically said to them, it's there for you. Just ask for it when you need it.
So we just do a 6-monthly or annual check on that, really, just to see. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give him another ring, but it didn't look like much of a move, as you say, because of costs, and
Yeah.
I think there's just a general.
Yeah, they've probably got
cultural immersion
paralysed
going on.
by
Yeah,
the
there's
doubling
sort
of the
paralysis
cost of
going on.
everything, yeah.
And the other thought, we were talking about this before the meeting, but if there's 8,000 there for royal events, and we know that's May and it's now January, if we're going to, somebody needs to take that away as an action.
I think-
There's
Yeah,
a
I think
subcommittee.
I think Pubs and
Pubs and
Coms
Coms have got a working
are,
group.
I think they are discussing it. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's fine.
They've set up a working group, I gather.
That's
So,
fine.
In theory, I don't know if it's met yet, but.
No, I don't think it's that yet.
There is
well, I mean, if the worst came to the worst, or the best came to the best, depending on how you see expenditure, and depending on which kind of councillor you are, and the thing the council did, as opposed to individuals coming for little grants, was the, what do you call your thing, the panorama topograph. That's quite a nice thing to do. I mean, it's sufficient, isn't it? I mean, you know, in Her Majesty's, you know, I was a beneficiary of Her Majesty's coronation. We got a mug, but it was immediately after the war. It was ever so different. It was a new world. There was still a bit of rationing. It was celebrate the new world. It was. It's not quite the same this time.
You call the coronation topograph then, or?
Well, it's going to say it, it's commemorating the coronation.
I did mention to Jen earlier on that we ought to change the photograph on top of the cupboard around there, and we should have the king up there, not the queen now.
That's I have, if you want to do that, I can talk about, I have my first sketch in my artist
Oh, right.
which got today. Which, so at the moment, it's proposed to say at the top, commemorating the coronation of HRH King Charles III, 8th May 2023, and then underneath, say, Edinburgh Parish Council. So it would, very clearly be
Yeah.
marking that.
Is it HRH? Would you say HRH? Would you,
No, you'd
is
say
When you
His
find out-
he not
Majesty,
already His Majesty? Is he not
No,
already?
His
Is
Majesty.
he
No,
not
no.
already His
Yeah,
Majesty?
it's
because he's king before he's crowned.
She was HR.
He's king. No, the king is HM.
The Queen, Her Majesty.
HM is the monarch. HRH is Royal Highness.
I'll take it away and check, shall I?
Yeah, we better get that right.
No one spends 7,000 quid
Yeah.
on it and half the way.
Going back up there with a chisel, trying to turn an RH into an N. All of us.
This is the
One of
first
you
draft, don't
You with a torch and Sean with a chisel trying to. But yeah, we'd better get that right, yeah. But he is already king, so he's king before he's
Can we have a look?
crowned or
Can we have a look?
coronated. Well, I guess I'll carry on and we can have a look. Can I carry
You can have a
on?
look
Let's
at
go
it.
around.
You have a look at them, or you can have them. You said the locations and stuff are also being confirmed.
Okay, so we have considered earmarked reserves, and I assume we are concluding that there isn't any action needed to manage these earmarked reserves. Do you all consider that the case?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 107 tenancies. Gartside is paying in advance every month. Phew, it's a relief. Do we know anything of what's happened to the previous tenant? Are they okay?
I don't, to be honest, no, I don't.
And then garage and allotment tenancies, new tenancy packs will be mailed out, and some adjusted fees, so it's to note again. Have we noted that?
Sorry, can I just ask one question? Do we have a waiting list for our allotments, or are they all?
Yes. we've
Yeah,
got
quite a
about-
long one, I believe.
Well, it's about 6.
Yeah, because there was somebody in Honley was asking, and I kind of got in touch with you saying how, and there weren't any. Somebody in Honley was wanting an allotment, and I thought maybe.
I just wondered.
We've got nobody waiting for a garage, but we've got probably about 6 or 7 or 8 waiting for a one.
And that will probably grow because there was a bit of a fashion for it. There is now a need for it, but it's become more mainstream, isn't it? And it's, people are growing veggies and stuff, aren't they? To organic and part of the sort of mainstream cleaner world.
I mean, a lot of the ones up there, I don't know whether you've ever been up, but a lot of them seem to be places where people go and hang out.
Oh, right. That's so cool.
Tables and chairs and swings and slides and that sort of thing. Summer houses.
Right. Excuse me. The deputy chair needs to undertake the internal control check. Can you fix up with Rich?
Yeah, it was fairly painless last time, so.
Yes.
So I'm normally here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So just email me when you want to do it. Okay.
Press within a
No,
month or
it
within-
doesn't, whatever.
That's good. Do better.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Really not slightly. At the end of the year.
Whenever's a bit open-ended, isn't it?
This financial year would be good.
Before the end of February.
Before the new council.
I'll get some jobs first then.
Banking, we want a standing order to time out media for the news in Tito. Are we happy with that?
Oh yeah, I didn't know. I thought I'd forgotten to do that. That's good.
Do all those in favour? Yep, approved.
Right, because they're always nagging at me if I don't pay. If I don't pay, they're always nagging at me. So I thought, get a standing order and stop them nagging.
Yes, good idea. To note, the financial records are on the website. Richard told us anyway, by email, about a week ago, or several days ago anyway. Maintenance contractors' contracts.
To know, isn't it?
Yeah, should I just say this
Yeah.
about this? So I made a mistake last meeting when I said that we wouldn't have to go through a full tendering process for John's contract, the toilets contract, or the benches and the shelters contract. Because the limit is 25,000 quid, and I thought that just meant for 1 year, but when the auditor was there, she said it's the cost of the total contract, and as we're considering going to like a 3-year contract or a 4-year contract, which are going to have a value of, 80,000, 100,000, whatever, we have to go through a full tendering process, which is quite complicated. Me and Jane both did the training, and as I was saying to you, Councillor Colling, in terms of the process, it's a very lengthy document. It's obviously been through lawyers, it's been through solicitors. It's not something that's just, our current contract is like 1 page that takes you about 15 seconds to type, whereas these are like 40 pages, where it's going through risk assessments, mapping out every single aspect of what the work entails. So it's a much more complicated process than we were considering. So we've had a bit of a chat about it. I'm going to knock together one. I'm basically going to steal somebody's put out into it. Yeah. And then I think I'll get James to speak to YLCA and see if it's essential that it has to go through a lawyer. But they certainly look like they've been through lawyers, don't they?
Yeah, they did to me, yeah. But there was a lot we could... Rich and I were talking about this because we were talking about the working group report. And we had thought originally we could attach to the working group report an example contract. But in fact we can't, because every contract we will have is really very different from every other contract. So, something for 80 grand is a bit different from whatever else we decide to make a contract. Excuse me.
So if we do go down the contract route for, say, the patient transport service, what else were we talking about? Did we talk about Christmas?
I think we talked where possible to make the with the Christmas tree lights. I think we were saying we'd make it. I can't remember offhand. In fact, it's here. It's written down in the report.
But in those cases, we obviously don't have to go through a tendering process for those.
But we haven't had one before. But when you think about the size of this contract, it's amazing. It's kind of just growed like topsy.
No, but it is legal at the moment because it's only a 1-year contract. It's under 25,000, so in that sense, it's easier as a 1-year £25,000 contract.
Yeah.
Whereas we'll be creating a lot of work, but obviously we won't have to keep it easy.
Councillor Hookley.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check, is the contract 2 parts of the same contract, or one contract for the toilets and one contract?
Well, again, I think this is probably something to discuss because I was looking at toilet provider contracts. This is my job at the moment. So I had a look at a council's toilet contract. It was a council, it was like a private authority contract. But it did make me think that we could probably split the toilets, i.e. the kind of cleaning the toilets and replacing towels and toilet paper and that sort of stuff, out from John doing the maintenance. So the maintenance is sort of a separate thing. I don't think we should necessarily be expecting the toilet contractee to be doing all that sort of stuff. Because it seems like that job of cleaning and replacing stuff is potentially a lot simpler contract than what John brings to us. Whereas John's contract, other local authorities, is basically a maintenance contract or a handyman contract, but it covers everything. So that they would have, say, graveyards, mowing, general repairs, bus shelters, seats, allotments, phone boxes. So they would all come under the same contract. So So I think it's something that we should be looking at under this, when we're looking at it next year. So this is what we were thinking about in autumn of 2023.
Yeah. Because we'll need, if we all agree today to agree the working group stuff on contracts, and I realise we're conflating two items on the agenda here,
Well,
that'll need to go to full council. Assuming full council approves it, we will then be committed to having rather more formal contracts than we currently have.
I suppose the key thing then will be to make sure that a lot of time is spent getting the spec right.
Yeah.
At the
Absolutely,
start, because
absolutely.
particularly if we're going to commit to 3 or 4 years, because to some extent, John, the relationship that the council has with John is quite an informal one. Obviously, it's a formal one in the fact there is a contract. I'm not saying there isn't, it isn't legal, clearly is. But I just mean the relationship is very much, you can just send him a message or call him up and say,
I certainly,
which is actually pretty
I
flexible,
certainly,
which works.
I certainly don't want to scare him off. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to price him out. I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah.
Because he's been really good. You know,
But we need to make sure.
We need
Yeah.
financial
Yeah.
good behaviour.
And also, in the end,
practice,
that
that's
might carry on forever. So
Yeah.
it's important that we have
That's
a
right.
clear understanding of exactly all the tasks
Yeah.
we need doing,
Yeah.
regularity.
And the other thing I was talking about with Jen, and I don't think we agreed, or disagreed with each other on this, but I was struggling to understand why John. So there's occasions when John prices, gives us a separate bill for something, even though it's essentially part of what he does. You know when he repaired one of the shelters. And what was the context of that? Why was that done separately with a separate bill? Why wasn't it just part of his normal everyday? Why was that a bigger thing? I know there was more damage to this shelter than general wear and tear, but why was it treated differently? So I think there's things like that are worth discussing, or at least trying to work out why it was a separate occasion. What was different about it? Because my opinion is it shouldn't have been different. It was just the same, but.
Councillor Carr.
Yeah, well, obviously we need to have a working group, but that's anyway, but I think for things like the toilet, that's very predictable. We need to reopen, we need it to be clean.
Yeah.
There's other companies who come and do that in other commercial premises, so
Yeah.
I could understand there being certain types of industries that would be interested in that if the price was right. The other thing, it feels like we almost want to have our go-to person who is trusted, and in Kirklees Council terms, they talk about approved suppliers. So if you've got an approved supplier, basically then you can automatically just go to them and get work. And it feels like that, it's that type of arrangement. So,
Like the caretaker in the school, really.
Yeah. so you can have a core contract and then build in a clause that says plus other work over and
At
above.
14.75.
Which would be, but you'd have to be very clear. Well, I can't do that in the core contract.
Yeah.
If this is extra work, I'm going to have to build separately. We need
Exactly.
to have not long more discipline, don't we, about
Yeah. Well, at the moment, I mean, he's amazing in a sense, because his contract says nothing. It doesn't say anything. It basically says you manage the toilets and you look after benches,
Yeah.
but there's nothing about how often,
Yeah.
in terms of the scheme of repair and updating stuff. There's nothing to it at the moment. So that's why I kind of said to start with that it's a much more complicated process than you think it is. 'Cause
We were thinking we could come up with a
Programme.
little sample contract to put on the back of the working group report.
I think in this
No
case,
way.
it's the programme of work. I mean, we do have a long list of all the benches and everything else, but there's not a great deal of information about how often stuff is done, I guess.
Councillor Black.
I'm just going to ask how are materials handled? I can understand it's paid some issues work, but
Well, we just pay for the materials.
so if he invoices you for the
Yeah.
materials that he's paid out for.
Yeah. So again, I didn't really see why that was different, but that kind of when the branches fell on the roof.
Yeah,
and
I just
not-
wondered if that was a lot of materials involved in that.
But we pay the materials anyway, so I don't
Materials
quite see.
anyway, right.
Anyway.
So, we note that is going to continue to, this will fall eventually to service provision, won't it? One way and another, well, Rich mainly, but service provision too, when we move on to the next point. So, Number 112, the grants working group. You've had the copy of the report. It's been amended in the light of comments received from both Doug's and Mary. Thank you. And I think it's pretty much ready with the revised application form and the feedback form to go to full council. Councillor Hogley.
First bit, I think it's really good. It's really good to go on to everyone who's involved in putting it together. I just had a few minor things I just wanted to raise. One was just where on page 4 we refer to the Climate Emergency Committee, and I think would be better referring to the Climate Emergency Action Plan, because that applies to the whole of the council and it then is related
Are you
to
making notes on this?
council-wide activity rather than a specific committee. I also wondered how things like Home Birth Civic Hall and Homley Library fit in as assets owned by us, because they're not specifically mentioned, and I'm not sure how they're therefore regarded, because they are arguably in a slightly unique category. So I felt probably needed to be something that at least said that they would be included in this, or they wouldn't be included in this. Sorry, my final point was just I thought the forms were really good. They're really clear, and they were much more a less parish council style of writing as well. They were written in a more friendly way, which I thought was nice.
The library and the civic we considered having a separate category. With grants and contracts and repeating grants, and we considered things that we owned, and we couldn't really make any sense of it, to be truthful. We couldn't make it hang together. Homley Library for the foreseeable future will have money earmarked for it, we assume, forever, because they don't really have any means of making money. They can make little bits of money with events and what have you, but they're not going to ever be self-funding. This building is intended to be self-funding, though whether, given the money trap it is, that will ever happen, it's difficult. But for instance, as you know from this committee, we haven't earmarked anything for them this coming year. So we didn't create a separate category. They essentially apply for grants.
I just wondered if it should actually explicitly mention that, only because they are two assets that we own.
Right.
It does say on the application form that they can apply for the assets grant. Because obviously from the meetings that happened recently, we've got rather fewer grants than we did 6 months ago. So obviously we've lost the service provision grants.
Yeah.
So I broke it down so that we've just got 2 grant categories now, full stop really, apart from the Christmas events type stuff.
Wi-Fi password.
What's wrong?
Well, this is.
I can.
You can reach, if you sit in this chair, you can reach this socket here.
If you go to my office, there's a plug socket in front of my desk, and there's some little strips of paper on there.
Right, sir, thank you. Sorry about this.
What's he after?
Password.
Wi-Fi.
I think it's a good point Rachel raises, because although they're sort of our asset, we do give money to a third party, don't we? There's money disappearing out of our funds.
It's not like the
in
looms.
the form of a grant, so it should be covered. In
Well,
the grant
we'll put a paragraph in. What was your first point, Rachel?
It was just about removing the reference to Climate Emergency Committee and saying it's Climate Emergency Action Plan, because that's really applies to all of the council's activities. It's
I'll
not
change
just
that.
interest of climate emergency.
And there's a question on the form that says, how does your project address the ongoing climate emergency?
Yeah.
So that's a much broader
Yeah.
threat, which is helpful,
Yeah,
isn't
which
it?
is fine. Yeah.
So I agree with, we should put something.
Yeah, well, I'll put that in. I'll amend it.
I
Can
thought
I-
the thing we were just talking about earlier with the can we give 5,000 to the tech, that whether Mary thought about this when she wrote the form, but there's actually a very helpful sentence because it says that.
Oh, I put that in because of it.
But it says the grant will pay for repairs and renovations, but it also says in very special circumstances.
Yeah, I put that in for
Other
them.
expenditure.
Yeah.
I think that's a really useful catch-all for
Yeah.
crisis type.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's because I knew you'd be querying it, because that's why I put that in.
So could I ask this committee that allowing for those two things, to rename the Climate Emergency Committee and to put in a paragraph spelling out the funding of the Civic and Honley Library, this committee is happy for this to go forward to full council for ratification.
Sorry, can I just ask one
Yeah.
final question? I should declare an interest, because Home First Christmas team may be the recipient of said Christmas lights grant, if it were to be given. So I'll make that personal declaration of interest now. But I just wondered, when it says grants should be awarded in principle for 3 years and contracts are 3 to 4 years, I just wondered why there was a distinction of the two, one being 3 and one being 4.
They could be both 3 to 4.
And just to check, so when it says an updated financial statement should be submitted each year, is that basically asking, will it be a case of whichever groups like those, like say the Christmas lights or film festival or whatever, they would just be contacted by parish council to say, when you'd be looking for this money again? Because I'm conscious, like community groups as well, and festivals may have years when they don't apply for the money, or the group may change into a different group. That's the thing. So how will there be a distinction?
Well, the idea was, the thinking was to save them having to do an application every single year and come up and having to say, well, this time we want it for a wooden seat that stands here, as opposed to a general sum of money to go towards, which they're not allowed to ask for, or we're not allowed to grant, rather. And the idea was, give it for 3 years, because the film festival, most of them are going to go 3 years. It could be 3 to 4 years, it could be, that could be altered. So they know their income, they know they're getting it, but that we check with, financial risk assessment. Every year we get a financial statement from them to make sure they're still viable and that we're not giving money to a sinking ship. It was the idea. So rather than a full application, it's just the year's accounts or something.
But I suppose the other question, which is a more general one, I suppose, about committing to 3 to 4 years, and I think it's good. I'm not against the idea. I'm just thinking the practicality of potentially, whilst the views of councillors may change over time, as to whether those are the things that they want to support through those grants. Because I just think if I was to sit down and make a list of all the sort of regular festivals and events, if you like, there are quite a lot when you start writing them down. So at what point would you say, well, those ones are special enough to merit having that commitment of 3 to 4 years, subject to that annual review?
I think that would be a discussion on the day, wouldn't it? I mean, none of this can be completely watertight, because there might be a new festival starts this year, catches on, and we don't know, we don't realise for 3 or 4 years that it's probably here to stay.
But I suppose it's having it in the contract as a sort of get out. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but I suppose that's what you build into it. I think there's things like, obviously you've got like the folk festival. I think they always ask for road closure, and so every year they put a new application
programme, I
on.
think, isn't it? Anyway.
No,
And the other thing is, we wouldn't just send them a cheque on the 31st when it becomes due. A cheque, how quaint. It would be, they would submit their accounts and say, we do want it this year. So if they weren't running this year, they wouldn't ask for it. It would be them asking, saying, can we have our money now? As opposed to us sending it out automatically.
And I think the other aspect of it was that it would be the decision of the new council to make the decision for the length of their term of office, or 1 term after their term of office. So hopefully people's views stay the same, because if they voted for that, but you
Just
know.
conscious of a bit of churning. There's always
Oh,
a
and,
bit of churning.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Councillor Carr?
Yeah, maybe we just need to be clear on the wording, because well, I was going to say exactly what Richard said, that I think the idea of saying with the contracts that once you've got your new council, that's when they should make any long-term commitments, but only for the duration of that council.
Yeah.
And I think we need to build in clauses like there is an annual review, we just do a quick finance check, and also check that they actually still want to do it, and they're still planning to run it. But that would be, I mean, that could still come to committee just for a comment, but it wouldn't be a full-blown application process.
No,
We want them to have some assurance that they know they're starting their festival planning and they've already got £1,000 assurance. So you know what you're working with, don't you, really? So that hopefully for the Christmas light committees and the others, you're not waiting to think, are we going to get it, are we not going to get it? You can say to other funders, we've already secured.
And somebody having to spend an hour or two, because we make them say it's for something specific as opposed to general money.
but from the other side, from our side, we've got to be seen to be getting value for money, so they've got to meet targets. And we've got to be a lot clearer about what our targets are, what we expect to get for our rolling £1,000.
Yeah.
So that's part of the audit process as well.
Sorry, can I just ask one final question about that process then? So if a group then is applying to sort of become one of those contracted services, presumably the first application they give at the beginning of that new council will be pretty comprehensive. Because I'm conscious that sort of we all know about all those festivals because we've sat through all the committee meetings and given them money, but you know, when you get a new council, you can't. You should never assume that everybody knows about all the things that are going on in the valley, because it's quite easy to think everybody knows everything that they don't.
Every 4 years they'll have to do a new application.
And then it's a case of it, then that's fine. I'm just
No,
making
but I
sure it's
think-
robust in that way.
I mean, I'd have to have a look at the grant audit form, but I think something like that every year that they just send, you just send them that out every year,
Yeah.
and they say what they've achieved, what they've spent from the £1,000, and that's it basically.
That would, I think we're just looking at the way that, it's quite a simple form, but it's basically saying how do you spend the money and what are the benefits, so if they're filled in that every year, that,
I think so.
signing off that seems.
And it maps out where the money's gone as well, so.
I've got another question, Chair. We've set it at 1,000, and the recent round, the last round, was there wasn't a huge demand, and it looks like the next round in February, which was saying before the meeting, there's nothing coming at all yet. And I just
Wouldn't
wonder,
necessarily expect it yet, but yes.
but I just wonder whether, is this the opportunity to raise the 1,000 to 1,500
Or 2,000,
or
I mean,
2,000? Why have we
Council
never, there are
Kane
two
said
things, but
1,000 was set way back before prices quadrupled over COVID, hadn't it?
Not
it
that,
wasn't reversed to rising, because it's still got to justify what they're asking for.
Yeah.
I think the cost of putting on even a very simple event is it's about 1,500 now, I would say. I mean, it's gone up appreciably over the last 10 years or so.
So do we think it should be 1,500 or 2,000?
I'm relaxed with either. I just say keep on pushing.
I'm happy for it to go up to 1,500. I don't think it needs to go up to 2,000.
Okay. Would somebody like to propose that?
I'll propose we raise
Thank
the
you.
grant limit to £1,500.
And seconder? Thank you, Councillor Blacker. Can that go on the full council?
Can we vote on it?
Oh, sorry. All those in favour? Sorry. Everything. Can that go on the full council agenda and we'll get that approved as well? Okay.
Can I also, Joe, just in the spirit of environmental matters, our application form on my screen, well, I noticed on Doug's screen it's grey, but it's blue on mine.
Let's go on.
I just wondered if it could be
It doesn't need to be coloured.
to avoid people unnecessarily printing out
Yes.
colour, which obviously then costs us.
I mean, the trouble is, even if it's grey, if it's still set to colour, you still get charged for a colour, even if it prints out grey. It's down to the operator to change it to black and white.
Okay.
I mean, for ink-wise, yes, you are correct from ink-wise, but in terms of the cost of the 5p against the half a p, that's down to the operator.
But a lot of the people doing this application are printing it on a home printer where that's...
That is true too. But yeah, fair point.
Okay, thank you. So we will, with those amendments, we will put that forward to full council, the next full council, for their approval. Precept 113, the precept for 23-24. Do you want to talk to this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say really. As you can see, the tax base went up, you know, a very small amount, and therefore the actual amount of the precept has gone up by a couple of £1,000. So, you know, it's money for nothing in a sense.
Yes.
I mean, it did go down a few years ago, if you remember, which
Yes, it did.
was a bit of a shock. So yeah, so it's, even if it's a couple of thousand, it's quite nice.
Publicising the work of the Home Valley Parish Council. Anything in particular on this round that we want, on this particular meeting that is...
Well, tech.
Oh, the tech, yeah. And that is it. We've finished.
And I will also try and tout the business for the other grants again. I did do it a couple of weeks ago, but I'll keep plugging away.
I saw the one on the Honley Facebook page.
Yeah.
Thank you all. We finished half an hour early. Hooray! We can go home and be warm.
So if anyone wants to see the first
Yeah, I'd
draft,
like to see it.
as I say, it's first draft, so don't get too hung up on exactly what all the
Yeah.
levels are, but just to give an idea of what the top
No, I like it.
And then on the sheet behind which shows the kind of structure it would be.
I like it.
Now slope to avoid picnickers
It is, yeah.
and
And we've had a
barbecues.
bit of debate about
Good
slopes, so
point,
if you
yeah,
stand
good
on one
point.
side, can you still see the view over the top of it?
You probably still use it for other nefarious
Fully.
What they get up to, we don't need to know. We're not planning to floodlight it, are we?
And we were talking about the fact we didn't want people to be able to use it as a ramp as well for like a
Actually,
so, you know, you don't want the bottom of it too close to the ground.
Of course,
You
you
think
don't
of how
want...
many different ways people can, you know, abuse things.
That's really good.
I'll do these amendments to the document and circulate you all with them and the rest of the working group.
thanks for calling. We should have sent a vote.
Thank you for pulling it together.
Mary did a lot of work for that.
Okay, that's wonderful. Can you?
My house isn't on here, Rachel.
Sorry?
My house isn't marked.
Oh no! The A6024 will be renamed Moorhead Road. I was like, what?
I was talking to a parish council.
Hang on. Honley isn't on here.
Is it not? Okay.
It's
So
facing
this is
the other way.
the initial,
It's a bit careful. Your house not being on there, or one not being on
My
there.
house, obviously, is much more
It's
important.
not a 360-degree.
Truly, honestly, Honley isn't on there.
okay.
So everyone's saying
I'll
that.
make it an up.
Well, he was just amazed.
Oh, is that for the
Yes.
Ramos?
Well, we were
Yeah,
saying.
it's
we were saying.
Is that, I literally got it this morning with the artist. You
She's involved with that Morrison. Anyway, he lived down
I'm assuming that's because it's not visible.
we were just chatting.
Possibly not, well that's what we need to, but then that's
No, it won't
it.
be visible, because it'll be by Swindon, not.
It looks really nice, Rachel, despite not having Honley.
But it could still have
Falling out with a
a
lot of people and
sign
design.
of,
Yeah, he was saying how.
yeah,
Plus,
so
it's probably more like-
is that supposed to show the general direction?
Yeah.
Because he
We'll
was.
get Pat to stand on Swindon Knoll with a big flag and say, "Time to go on."
Yeah, precepts, but they charge a lot more, even though
Just
it's
gives you
more.
an idea of what you could.
But it also for some time got village rights, which is.
It's all going to be carved into the stone, to the shape.
I think it's going to be lovely. I think it's
No,
another
we were saying
brainwave of
about
yours.
Cheesegate habits to mention.
I beg your pardon.
Cheesegate
Building
It's
is
really good.
What was that?
So, this artist is doing new man. He's done
What are the plans?
Well, the ones
Not
that-
like-
It's
South
lovely.
East.
It's
Yeah.
looking down there. Even if it's laid
Before
up.
the sale, so was it Katie's and Alicia, I think that's like what's happening.
Actually, one thing I did want to make
Hang on, hang on.
Can I just ask a quick question about the topic as well? That's upside down. I'm always conscious when you stand up there, you look out over York, and I thought, does it need to say something about being Yorkshire? But
Yes.
I don't know if it's in
Yeah.
its right,
It
saying,
does, yes.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
as
joking, it's
as opposed-
God's own country.
yeah, as opposed to Derbyshire, which is about 30 feet behind you. Yeah.
And we have like a sign that says Dark Peak, and then behind us you're going to say the Dark Side. Then is it?
I don't think it looks naff, but I just feel like there should be something that reflects Yorkshire. Because it is all
Sure.
Yorkshire, if you look that way. It's Barnsley,
You're right on the edge of Yorkshire, aren't you? 'Cause
Most
I-
Yorkshire.
That's the
It's
question.
North Yorkshire. Yeah.
That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, because you're on board with Derbyshire.
I don't exist anymore. I still think we should have like Yorkshire, almost Yorkshire, not Yorkshire.
Used to.
Oh, that's sort of Yorkshire and Hairby Dragon.
Well, this is
Somewhere-
somewhere
else.
You can't see, can you see Saddleworth? You can't, can you, because Black Hill's in the way.
No.
So everything you can see.
Is it basically, it's a
is
bit
out
of a 180 panorama, you can't actually
there.
see.
You can't see
Where-
the
where's it
But you're only feet from
Yeah.
Derbyshire, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're yards from Derbyshire.
And even Drax and everything, look at that, still all Yorkshire, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can see
Yeah.
all of that. So everything you can
So
see.
it feels as if it is all York, I don't know,
Yeah,
somehow I
yeah,
feel
I
it
think
should
so,
say
yeah.
Yorkshire, but I
I
don't
think
know
it
how
should.
to.
Well, the best
What's the current heading? I only looked at the.
Well, their current heading, although we might change HRH once I've done some research.
Yeah.
Yes.
Commemorating-
I think you're definitely going to have to do that.
It says, no, commemorating the coronation of HRH, or His Majesty, King Charles III, 8th of May 2023, and then Hay Valley Parish Council.
Oh, right, so it doesn't say what it is.
No, but it's self-evident by the fact that.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking
Landscape,
if
yeah.
you
But I
want
didn't
to.
know if there should be something down
You
here,
could
or
put something
whether,
underneath,
Yeah.
couldn't you? Yeah.
unless we have a, I
Like
mean,
that.
bear in mind it will all be black and white, 'cause it's just
Is
gone
it-
down the stone. So,
Is there something?
Roles,
I
maybe.
feel like there should be a quote.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, Yorkshire
if there's a
Roads.
quote or something like, I don't know, a Gervais thing, there might be somebody who's done, like, all the land before me is Yorkshire or something like that, because it is.
All the roads.
See that?
So what's in that? If you're in Saddleworth, there's white roads everywhere in Saddleworth, isn't
But
it?
it wouldn't be a white red, it would look like.
No,
white.
but the point is, everything you're looking at is Yorkshire,
Yeah, well,
isn't
that's
it?
why I think it's.
So, it's like, you know, the Lord of all the land nice survey kind of thing, it's that kind of thing, it's like, it's like, here be Yorkshire.
But it's that balance between making it
No.
something that's
No, I think if we can come up with a, we may not solve it tonight, but I think it's worth thinking about to say.
You want Yorkshire Bon Mutts, don't you? Something like that.
Or something like,
I don't want to
The whole-
write all
you know, presented by
you've reached your.
presented by Longbarry Parish Council to celebrate this very special part of Yorkshire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's
it,
what I
I
do,
like
yeah,
it,
yeah.
yeah.
So if I was religious, you could put God's own country, but I don't really.
And that way,
Yeah.
we go, it's Yorkshire, but it's the best bit of Yorkshire to all the rest.
They might be some reference to the NDP. Yeah, well, there are, aren't there, some, you know,
Oh, well, yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
what we're looking at, yeah.
I think, there'll be quotes will be something.
As long as it's
Well, exactly, I
as
don't
long as
want
it's
it to
not
be
known
corny.
for
Corney's all right, but not too corny.
Hey, look, you've reached Yorkshire, it just look rubbish. Well, anyway, if everyone can get their thinking caps.
This is Yorkshire, it was worth the climb, wasn't it?
You could go for something for as far as you can see.
Yeah.
As far as you can see is Yorkshire.
Oh, that's quite nice, yeah, that's a nice thought.
Something like all.
Simon Anderson should come up with a phrase for it.
Yeah, because he does, he's got various things scattered over.
He's got
carrying
stones all over,
things,
yeah.
things.
Standards, things.
Yeah, it's like we haven't done much around here to say. He's
Doesn't
lived
it?
in a home valley for
It's
ever and a
really
day.
in Home Valley these days.
Where does it?
Maybe,
Well,
yeah,
high school. Top at Northgate.
Really? Does anyone know?
might be coming to do the, well, there's a possibility of the person who's going to do the opening thing for the transfer opening thing for the
That
library.
would be good.
Someone else has contacted you.
Perhaps we could ask him to do
I
a
think
Friday
he's
for
come
us.
to do a poetry reading in the library maybe about 10 years ago.
It was less than 10 years. He did do one of their poetry, because they have poetry read-arounds regularly. And he did do one. I think it's more like 5 years than 10
There
years.
is another Simon Armitage in Onley, and who's married to the former clerk at Meltham.
I think Simon Armitage, the poet, probably spends more time in London than he does in Honley these days.
Well, I've seen him in court quite a few times.
Maybe I've never seen him in the village.